Well, hello, everybody. We've got 1 week to go in the 2021 season. Glad we could make it all the way through. I guess I shouldn't jinx this, but glad after last year, glad to have a full season of football. Valdosta State and Ferris State will meet in the national championship. It's a repeat of the 2018 game. We'll look at their semifinal wins. In addition, three-time national champion coach Adam Doral will join us. He is now at Central Oklahoma. We'll talk to him about the UCO program as well as about how to coach and approach a national championship week, since he's been involved as a head coach with three of them and as assistant with many others. We'll also take your questions, and we'll do more than that. You know how it is every night on Inside D2Football. Tonight, we're going to start with a great game, one that we did not expect to be so great, and we were pleasantly surprised. Ivory Durham threw for 220 yards and ran for 153, had 4 total touchdowns, as Valdosta State came away with a 34-31 victory over the Colorado School of Mines. So let's take a look at those highlights.
Yeah, Brandon, as we kind of take a look here early, as you mentioned, Valdosta comes in a pretty healthy favorite in this contest, and Ivory Durham's able to strike right away. First play that they have to Gallimore for a deep score, and all of a sudden we're kind of off to the races a little bit with the Blazers, and you get to see Ivory Durham running here a little bbit as well. Quarterback who's just got a whole nother gear to him, can really fly. Then Valdosta gets up 10-0, and all of a sudden Mines has got to kind of respond, and they're going ahead, moving the chains, not a lot of splash plays, little quick shots here and there, in a game where they run over 80 plays in this contest, and field goal here, so they're able to mark and get themselves to a 10-3 score. They get the ball back, do a little zone read here, and Matoka, real gutty run, ends up getting in for the score. Then you look at Valdosta having to go ahead and respond. They're able to go ahead and do a quarterback draw here, and you can see the athleticism of Durham here on the play. Just a really good runner, and when he gets an open field, he's a whole lot to handle. Then they're able to go ahead and hit a shot here where the safety kind of gets a little bit on spin cycle trying to cover the post. And Matoka goes ahead and, he's able to make time with his feet as a quarterback, kind of do some playground type stuff. He's also able to go ahead and score here, with the zone read again. He was having some success with that. He was over 100 yards, gained on the ground there. Valdosta goes ahead and scores again. Valdosta was just so dynamic and able to hit passing plays continually. Huge play in the football game right here, Brandon. Matoka's trying to get in, gets hit at the 2, and the ball goes all the way through the end zone, touchback. Huge missed opportunity there. So it ends up being a real costly play, especially a first down play, no less.
Right.
Then you go ahead and you get a chance to see, once again, Valdosta hitting shots down the field, just using their speed, and Ivory Durham off and running, and he's just flying down the field, outruns everyone. And now they're up 34-17. And Mines is kind of at the doorstep here on 4th down again. They run a reverse, and the tackle goes ahead and kind of gives the D end a receipt there. And then the linebacker makes a nice play and ends up, thwarting them again. They were inside the 10. Once again, didn't come away with anything. Fumble by Valdosta here. Then you go ahead and you can see Mines trying to take advantage of that. They're able to hit a nice drag route here and be the first one to the pylon to get this to a 10-point game. So Valdosta's trying to kind of hold on to this lead while, it's kind of slow going for Mines. They're not a dynamic team in terms of, big shots down the field, but they're able to get one here late in the contest where Josh Johnson goes up, makes a play, and then he makes one on the fade right here afterwards to bring him within 3 points. And this game gets a little hairy all of a sudden for Valdosta, but they're able to make a nice play here. Brian Sounds is able to go ahead and make a play on the hands team, and you go ahead and you see Gary Goff going ahead and celebrating there. What was a game that I think a lot of people really didn't think was going to be quite that tight. And, all of a sudden you're looking at a game at halftime that's a one-score contest. And Valdosta built a pretty good lead there in the second half, but then kind of, has a few fumbles, couldn't really put things fully away, and mine sticks around. Let me ask, Coach Justin, you were there on the sidelines. Kind of, what was your take there at the game?
Yeah, there were so many things to kind of take apart from this game. The first thing I think was, just that the game I think was closer than probably a lot of people thought it was going to be, and it was 34-17 with 4 minutes to go. Valdosta, they tried to basically be. I don't want to say they got conservative, but they did a little bit. They didn't keep taking their shots and keep pushing the ball down the field, and gave Mines the ball back pretty quickly there. Mines had 2 onside kicks there at the end, executed, about as good as you can execute an onside kick. They just didn't recover either one of them. So they had the chance up until the last play of the game, really, until those onside kicks. And I will be honest with you, the one thing that I felt like I saw from both teams was not their best performance in that game. It was a tale of turnovers on both sides. The fumble into the end zone for the touchback, I think, was a game changer for Mines. And I also think the dropped ball in the end zone for Mines. They dropped a couple passes, especially early, that got them out of rhythm, put them behind early. They got back in it, but then late in the game, they dropped the ball in the back of the end zone. So a couple big drops. And then from Valdosta, they fumbled the ball 3 times. They lost 2 of the 3 fumbles. That is not a typical Valdosta team that we're used to seeing. So, I thought turnovers I thought they played an impact in the game, just to where we were. Real quick, Mines, 87 plays for 448 yards offensively, and then Valdosta had 61 for 538. Mines dominated the time of possession, 34 minutes, almost 35 minutes. So, there's a couple things you could pull apart from the game, but overall, as big as Valdosta got the lead out, Mines didn't quit. They played from the first snap to the last snap, and they were in it till the end. And then the other thing that I was curious to see how it would play out was the heat and humidity. And I know it was 61 in their quarterfinal game last weekend in Colorado, but the heat and the humidity is definitely a little bit different in South Georgia compared to Colorado. And I thought Mines, they did a great job. They were hydrating all week, and you really didn't see that play as big of an impact as I thought we could see potentially in that game. So I thought, there's so many different layers to that game, but it was a great game. It was great to be there and just kind of get to experience that. And so, it was a great game, and Valdosta came out on top. So,
Coach, let me ask you, you're watching the same thing I was when you mentioned, some drop passes. Chuck and I had kind of chatted a little bit, throughout the afternoon about, hey, Mines is kind of squashing some early opportunities. Their first 2 series were basically wasted opportunities. It looked like they came out a little bit timid or a little bit in the funk. And because Valdosta they had corners coming on up, they were going to be aggressive. They looked like they were trying to take away some of those receiver screens that Mines really likes and is able to block up really well. But then you did see the fact that Mines was able to run the football better than I would have expected. Zeman goes over 100 yards. So does, the quarterback Matoka. It seemed like they got so used to Zeman carrying that when Matoka did, a lot of times that D end was crashing so hard that he had some pretty good open space. How did it look when were you a little bit surprised that they were able to get that many first downs running the football?
I was, but I wasn't. And when I say that, yes, I mean, they were able to do some things in the run game that I think kind of showed some deficiencies maybe for Valdosta. But on the flip side of it, Valdosta really hasn't played a team that does a lot of the things that Mines does. They play with a true tight end. They play with a wing. They shift them away from the receiver sets. They shift to the receiver sets. So they do some different things with some motions and some shifts that they really haven't seen a lot of. And unless you see it enough, really 2-3 days of practice is hard to prepare for something like that. So I was surprised, but they were able to take advantage of some things. And like you said, they dropped, I felt like the first 2 drives, I agree. They dropped the ball. They dropped the ball a lot, and it was almost like they were trying to run before they caught it. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. They were trying to run before they caught it, and they just didn't get into a rhythm. I felt like when Valdosta had gone for the fake punt there on that fourth down, that kind of gave them a little bit of hope and gave them a little bit of momentum, and that got them at least back. They scored on that next possession, but it got them back in the game in more ways than just the touchdown. It got them back believing, okay, we're back in the game. We're good to go. Because I think if Valdosta scores on that drive and you put them down 3 scores that early, it would have been it may have been a different ball game, but that's just mine's mentality. And the other thing I saw too, just defensively, real quick, on that first touchdown that Gallimore caught in the end zone, they brought the corner up, they pressed, and they didn't have safety help over the top. And you notice that a couple of times on a couple of the big shot plays that Valdosta had and they scored on, they brought pressure. That pressure never got there, and they were going one-on-one with the receivers and the corners. When they did that, Valdosta was able to capitalize a lot on it. So I don't know if it was the check that they maybe had offensively in this week or what, but I thought Ivory Durham did a really good job of identifying those coverages and checking to those shot plays, or, I don't know if they were called or if it was a shot that was called in there or it was a check for him, but I thought they did a good job of adjusting to what Mines did. Once they didn't, they left safeties over the top to help. They were able to limit the big plays that Valdosta was able to have.
Yeah, I think if I see man coverage on Gallimore, if I'm Ivory Durham, if I see man coverage on Gallimore, my eyes are going to light up. We saw it against Bowie State last week too. Yeah. He's a burner and a very experienced receiver too. So,
Chuck, let me ask. You and I had chatted during the game. It just felt like Mines was looking to move the chains and continue to move the chains until they got down in the red zone and score. While it looked like Valdosta was saying, hey, you know what? We know we got burners here. We know we can make splash plays. And, you take a look at the fact that Durham completes 12 passes the whole football game because they were able to hit some big shots. I mean, what was kind of your take in watching it, Chuck?
Well, I think that you talked about Mines being a very persistent offense and not necessarily built to go fast or built to play from behind. And I agree with that. But I think that their patience and their commitment to their game plan really paid off. When I looked at the final stats and saw that Zeman was over 100 yards, that really kind of surprised me because it felt like his longest carry of the day was like maybe 6 or 7 yards.
Right.
And there were a lot of 3 and 4 yard carries in there, but really, really tough carries. And I think that, there were a lot of body blows in there with Zeman. And I think that made a big difference. And it also really opened up the running game with John Matoka, who I thought had a fabulous football game. I felt so bad for him that fumble really was such a game changer. Worst rule in football, by the way. The ball goes through the end zone and it goes to the team. I don't understand that, but we'll save that from the day. I felt so bad for him that play had such influence in this game because without his performance, they're not even in the football game. He played very, very well. And I think it was kind of interesting is, we were kind of texting back and forth, even when it was still, I think 34-17. And I think we both agreed, it's not unreasonable to think that Mines could have done this. They could have won the game. A few missed opportunities, a couple mistakes. And, if they just play just a little bit cleaner, catch some of those balls and don't turn it over, they possibly get out of Valdosta with a semifinal win. That they were good enough to do it. And I think that's definitely something they'll hang their hats on. The coaches talked about that after the game that, this really validated us as an elite football program. And now they expect to be there year in and year out. And I have to give them a lot of credit for that. I think I underestimated Mines for the whole second half of the season.
Yeah. You know what? I think that they actually, if you take a look, this playoff run that they went on, I think if you take a look at that and the rest of their slate, I think they flat out played better in the postseason this year than they did the regular season. I mean, we were talking about, we didn't know that their offense was all that good. They played pretty good offense in this postseason, I'll tell you that. They didn't turn the ball over a whole lot. They're pretty darn efficient. Everything else. I mean, you mentioned Zeman. I mean, he's got such great balance. I mean, there's no flash to him, but he's so seldom does he take a loss. He always finds a way to get 2-3, even when it looks like he's not going to get anything. So, I mean, some of those things are kind of what caught my eye. We talked a little bit about Ivory Durham. I mean, his explosion, his ability to get around the edge. And obviously, Chris, you're familiar, getting a chance to probably see a little bit more of Valdosta, maybe than some of us. I mean, is that kind of what you expected from him, Chris? Is him be able to make those? Because I mean, he seemed like he was kind of the difference maker in this game.
Yeah, Durham is probably the fastest, if not one of the fastest players on this team. And because of that, I think what happens is the offensive line is so steady. If they can't get anybody open downfield, I mean, he has the wheels to get a first down on his own. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, I mean, it's just one more man that you have to really cover. And when you really need help in the secondary to try to guard those guys that Valdosta has, Gallimore, Sons, you gotta guard those guys, and then you have to also watch for Durham running, and he can pick up those yards. So it's like, what do you really do?
Yeah, it's hard to play a two deep safety and spy the quarterback at the same time. There's only so many guys you have on the field. It makes it very difficult for your defense.
And their leading receiver didn't even play yesterday. Sons, I think, was only on the field for one play, and it was that onside kick at the end. Right. So he didn't play, but
he held on kicks. He held on PAT field goals, and then he recovered the onside kick. So
gotcha.
A couple stats of
sideline reporting right there.
Yeah. Zeman had 28 rushes for 105 yards for an average of 3.8. His longest was 10 yards.
Right.
Matoka, 17 for 101, 87 net, and then 18 was his largest. But the other thing, too, just two quick stats that I thought were pretty interesting when I was looking at the stat sheet after the game. Matoka was sacked 4 times in the contest, which was something that I wanted to see with the pass defense and things like that. But Ivory Durham had 0 sacks.
They couldn't corral him.
Yeah.
Well, you try to sack him.
You almost want to try and keep him in that pocket, because the moment he gets loose, I mean,
gone.
Yeah, mine's had a backer who actually got him twice after he got rid of the ball, and I was pretty impressed with the guy's closing speed, because he got on him. And there was a play where Durham also, he's running with the ball, and he ends up kind of getting railed from behind on a play, and then ends up coming up hobbling, and he kind of looked like he was still able to accelerate afterwards. But after all of it, I'm just wondering if he's a little bit dinged up, after a few days and coming out of the adrenaline. I mean, did you see any of that, Justin?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. He got up a little slow after that one.
Yes.
And, is he? I mean, everybody's banged up at this point in the year. So, yeah, he probably is to a degree.
Well,
I don't know.
I walk like that from the kitchen to the bathroom. But, I mean, that's just normal.
Exactly. Well, and of interest, though, Ivory Durham led the team in rushing. He rushed for 153. So, there was a couple times as well, when the pocket broke down, he took off like you talked about with the defenders, the linebackers were wrapping him up, and he was getting away from them. Right. And there was a couple times that he was able to extend plays beyond first contact, second contact, because of his ability to run the football. So,
now let me ask, Devin. I know that I think you had some other football stuff going on. I'm not sure, but did you get a chance to watch much of the action on Saturday?
Not as much of it. I was following along with you guys on Twitter. You guys giving out updates and stuff like that. So I was trying to keep in touch with it while I was doing stuff on Saturday. I will say that I was the closest to picking the score right. I had the 11-point spread, which was the closest. So a little pat in the back for myself for this one. But yeah, I mean, I think
Valdosta can get him.
Exactly. I had 34, but I'll just leave that there. But keep going.
Yep, you did. You had 34-20. You were close. You were the second closest. So I'll give you credit for being second best. But yeah. Anyways, Valdosta State, they were just explosive. Every time I looked up, like Ivory Durham, big run play, Ivory Durham hitting somebody deep, and just that's what really stood out to me was just how explosive they were on offense. And Durham, we talked about it in our Harlan Hill discussion, how he wasn't a finalist out of that super region. And it kind of looks at this point, if he wasn't, he was playing a little extra. I know you want to play well anyways, but maybe a little extra. Like, hey guys, this is what I can do on the big stage kind of deal. Like, you don't think I'm one of the best 8 players in the nation kind of deal. So I thought he played fantastic. And credit Mines, we didn't give him a whole lot of credit to win this game. I think a lot of us said they'll keep it close. I'm not sure if they had the firepower to win it, but you could see this game, they were every bit as good as what Valdosta was. So credit to Mines for going on the road and playing a really tough football game. Just Valdosta just had a little bit too much explosion there in offense and build a lead there to get the win.
As you guys know, I write stuff down during the show, and one of the things I wrote down is Ivory Durham getting shortchanged. And I think
nailed it by behind, but it's a family show, Whit, so
Also, I agree with Chuck. The fumble out of the end zone is a terrible rule, but that's fine.
Yes.
But Ivory Durham, we've talked about Reed all year. We've talked about Bajan all year. And he throws a little funny, but he is a great dual threat player.
Oh yeah.
He's just really good. It's a shame that the voting is conducted in the manner it is for the Harlan Hill Trophy.
I think that because
he should be one of the guys.
This is his first year as a full-time starter. I think we kind of forget, Ivory Durham played on that national championship game in 2018, and he was a contributor. He played in that national championship game against Ferris State, so he knows what he's going into this week.
He threw a touchdown to Rogan Wells in that game.
That's right. Devin, it's hard to tell who's a senior these days.
I know. I'm like, is he still a senior or is he just a junior with 2 years of eligibility? I'm not sure at this point. I'm just kind of curious if anybody knew if this was his last year finally or if it's a Perry Ellis situation. I don't think we know
that about anybody right now.
When they don't play next year, when they're not on the roster, I think they ran out of eligibility.
Did you just drop a Perry Ellis reference, Devin?
Yeah, he played for Kansas forever, like 80 years.
I was going to say only guys that live where we live would get that. So.
That's fair.
All right. Anyway, great game in Valdosta, certainly. A game that was not nearly as close. Ferris State with a 55-7 win over Shepherd. Ferris State, it was just dominant. Jared Bernhardt, we weren't sure if he was going to play. He did, and he started his return with 201 yards on 21 carries. He accounted for 5 touchdowns. So to the highlights, let's take a look at it.
Yeah,
this should be easy. Whit, just say, there's Jared Bernhardt running for a touchdown.
That's a whole lot of what this is. First play from the scrimmage, he goes 60 yards and kind of weaves his way through Shepherd defenders who are doing a lot more watching than tackling right there. And then he goes ahead and scores a play later, and all of a sudden it feels like, okay, that was way too easy, and this is how today is going to be, and the Ferris offensive line and everything else. And then Ferris fumbles a series later, and all of a sudden Shepherd goes ahead, takes possession there, and Tyson Bajan's able to go ahead and kind of start doing Tyson Bajan things. He didn't have a lot of room to breathe yesterday, but he was able to go ahead and hit his guy Josh Gontarek for the score after hitting him earlier for a nice chunk play. But then once again, we're back to, Bernhardt going ahead and making plays with his feet, getting chunk yards every time he carried the ball, it seemed. And they're able to go ahead and have so much success in the middle. And then the punter goes ahead and decides to roll the football before he punts it, which is not a good thing normally. And then they go ahead and they score right on the heels of that. 21-7 starts to not feel like this game's going to be terribly competitive. They're able to then go ahead and run jet sweep left, based off all the success they're having running the quarterback. So 50-yard gain right here, and they're just making it look, frankly, pretty easy. Ferris State's offense can do so many things with all the eye candy. Another score here by Bernhardt, one of his 5 right there. Now they go jet sweep to the right. Marcus Taylor, their top wideout, goes ahead and takes it the other direction. And then, Bernhardt looks in the middle, then decides he's going to go left with it. Nice run for another, big play. And then on 4th down, they go off right tackle, and the Ferris O-line basically says that's where we're going, and they do it. So 35-7 at half. Then they go ahead and they run a little trickeration, untouched for a score. So they're really pretty much solidifying this game at this point. Bajan gets hurried, and all of a sudden, Ferris State's looking to try and go pick six the other direction. They're almost able to, and then right on the heels of that, they brought in second-string quarterback Malik Mitchell, and his first play in, he slings one to the post for a score, and he's getting in some work here at this point. A tremendous backup, as we saw a week ago when they played Northwest. So, you've got all these weapons that they have. Then they go kind of their big boy package, and they bring in their next quarterback, Evan Cummings, who's 6'3", 225, and he scores. And he runs the ball a lot. He's run the ball, 10 times, I think, in the postseason for 3 scores. So when he comes in, a lot of times he's using his shoulder pads more than his throwing arm. But, this Ferris team and their offensive line, there was a graphic during the game where it mentioned that they averaged 307 across. Yeah, and the D line of Shepherd was 235, and it kind of felt like that. They were just moving the line of scrimmage, down a few yards every time, and Bernhardt was just figuring out, where do I need to go here, and he was able to do so very successfully, as you guys mentioned, over 200 yards of rushing. Chuck, let me ask you, you and I had kind of chatted a little bit during the game, and then it kind of got a little bit one-sided. What was your take, your kind of reaction after watching it?
Yeah, I got a little one-sided after the coin toss. I think we all went into this with pretty realistic and pretty low expectations, to be honest. And that's really because, if you back up a couple of weeks, Ferris State beat Grand Valley State by 34. And they beat Northwest Missouri State by 21. When you do that in back-to-back weeks against those programs, you have my attention. And, the analysis on this one was pretty simple. One team was just a lot better than the other. The line of scrimmage dominance was evident from the first series on both sides of the ball. And, that generally just doesn't get a whole lot better or change much during the game. You can get creative and try to negate that, but Shepherd just really wasn't able to find a way to really effectively do that. All that said, I was a little bit disappointed. I thought Shepherd would be able to mount a few scoring drives. Their only touchdown came off of a short field following a turnover. If that doesn't happen, they possibly get shut out. So I was disappointed that we weren't really able to see the best of Tyson Bajan. I don't think he played badly. He did the best he could. They just were severely outmanned against that Ferris State team. And they did have 300 yards of offense. So they did move the ball a little bit. They just couldn't finish drives. And it's hard to string a drive together against a team with that much talent. And on the other side of the ball, there wasn't much surprise about what Ferris State was going to do. You just had to stop it. You knew what they were going to do. And Tony Anise has talked about this with his offense too. A lot of times there's a lot of eye candy. We've noticed it. There's a lot of pre-snap motion. Mm-hmm. And he's actually even used the term illusion. There's a lot of illusion to what they do. But where the ball's going to go is not always that complicated. And, they still couldn't stop it. So, over 200 yards for Bernhardt. I think, what you and I were both kind of trying to coach Tony Anise during the second half, because obviously we know a lot more than he does. And we're kind of texting each other back and forth, saying, please take Jared Bernhardt out of this game. He shouldn't have even played the second half. He's been knocked out with injuries twice this year. They need him to win next week. So that game was over by halftime. We thought he should have been out and put Malik Mitchell in. And I think the interesting thing was Mitchell was in for like maybe 2 series, and then they went to the number 3 guy, which was the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. I thought that probably could have happened a little bit sooner, but you just have to tip your hat to Ferris State. They were just a more physically dominant and more athletically dominant football team. And that was pretty much the size of it.
I really thought, Chuck, that I thought a good indication of how physical and how dominant they were at the line of scrimmage was the fact that they threw a Harding-ish 3 passes the entire first half and had 14 first downs all on the ground in that first half, which is really an indication of how they were able to kind of have their way up front. Ferg, what are your thoughts kind of coming out of this one?
We got paper.
Oh,
Super Region 1, gonna Super Region 1.
That's all I gotta say.
Ferg Shade and SR1.
That's all I gotta say. Is So this is the Devin moment in which I would say that I was the closest to the output that Ferris State would have had 52.
Matt was second again.
I mean,
did Matt go to Northwest Missouri State?
Right. It wasn't even close. I mean, I was really disappointed because I was really hoping that, Tyson Bagent could be a little bit more of an equalizer in this game. But I think just, Ferris they just have so much talent across the board. And I'd imagine too that, when your defense really isn't playing very well and your offense, that's really supposed to be explosive is kind of not really clicking the way it should be, that it's just demoralizing as the game goes on. So what do you really do to respond, especially going in 35-7? That's a heck of a comeback to try to have. I mean, so, it was very disappointing. This was definitely the game that we thought was going to be lopsided, and it was just not to the degree we didn't think it was going to happen, to the degree that it actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the most disappointing part of this.
Yeah,
I think. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Certainly the weather. It's the wind's blowing sideways, and all of a sudden you're going, okay, who's this going to affect more? Okay, Ferris doesn't feel the need to pass very often, and Shepherd's going to do it 70% of the time. Okay, this doesn't play well for the underdog right out of the chute. Then you got some snow coming, and it's a little damp, and it just seemed like everything was kind of snowballing, I thought. Devin, what was your take?
I think kind of piggybacking off K-Ferg's thing we thought Shepherd would be able to score a little bit more. So we still thought that Ferris would put up 40 to 50 points. We just thought Shepherd would make it more respectable with putting up 20 to 28 points kind of deal in a couple scoring drives. But as Chuck said, they just couldn't get their feet underneath them there. The Ferris defensive line is really good. I mean, they just control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. That's why I tweeted out fire-breathing dragon. That's what they are right now. If you roll through Grand Valley, Northwest, and Shepherd, three teams who have been in the situation, they're not playing teams that first time being here. These are teams that are here each and every year, and they're just throttling them. I mean, they're on a different level right now. So I'm excited to see what they do with versus Valdosta next week. We'll get that in a little bit. But, yeah, just Ferris is on a different level right now. Going through their side of the playoffs, playing at home, you're not beating Ferris State in Ferris right now. It's just not going to happen.
The other thing about Shepherd that I think we all kind of recognize is that the defense hadn't really been that great to begin with. It's been just okay, and that means that puts more pressure on your offense to produce. And I don't know if that's just a product of the way the PSAC in general operates, where there's just lots and lots and lots of offense, and then Kutztown's kind of like the exception. But I mean, that model just really just really hurt Shepherd here. If you remember when Shepherd actually went to the national championship, it was on the strength of a really strong defense, and especially defensive line. And we just kind of saw that defensive line got pushed around in this particular instance. So it's just kind of a departure from what I think we as a community have seen Shepherd, how they conduct their business on the football field. It's just a different change in philosophy, and unfortunately, that seems to hurt a little bit when you get to this part of the playoffs.
I agree, Ferg. You're totally right on that. I think it's been a little bit of an evolution, since Monty Cater retired a couple of years ago. The Shepherd teams of the past, when they were, in the old Wiviac and then the MEC, they were really, really strong defensive football teams. And you're right. When they got to the finals in 2015, it was because they had an elite level defense. And we got to see that against Grand Valley State when they won the semis. And honestly, we even got to see that in the finals against Northwest Missouri State. Now, the offense couldn't do enough against that Northwest defense, but we got to see that Shepherd defense make some plays and make some stops. We never really got to see the best of the Shepherd offense yesterday, and that was really disappointing.
I think it shows that sorry, Matt, I think one of the things that we learned, maybe at the NFL level, a quarterback can win a game for a team, but at least at this level, it probably still takes a team to win. And I was very impressed with some throws that Bagent would make, that he could make, but the opportunities just weren't there.
Right.
So Still a team game.
Yeah, and we're not piling on Shepherd defense line. Ferris pushed around Northwest D line, which is one of the best in the nations last week.
Right.
I mean, this is what they do up front. They're huge, they're big, they're physical. That's what they do. So it's not bagging against Shepherd. They did this versus the elite competition as well, elite units on defensive line as well. So it's not against Shepherd or anything like that. It's just this is what Ferris does.
It's more about Ferris than anything. Yeah,
exactly.
It is.
I thought Whit and I both agreed. We thought Northwest had the best defense in the nation, and Northwest pounded right at them. So.
Yep. So, all right. So that sets up a national championship this week. Ferris State and Valdosta State, a repeat of the 2018 team or 18 game rather. That was as exciting a game as any of them that we've had in the championship. And really, one play could have forced overtime. In that game, and it was literally that close to forcing overtime. So that was an incredibly entertaining game. And I think Chuck, you had sent me the message or whoever, it doesn't matter, but you said, "Hey, we're going to have a great game," and that's what I thought. That's immediately what I thought is like, I'm really excited for this. This is not a situation where you think one team is going to dominate the other. It is a situation where either team winning is not a surprise. And it's also not two like mediocre teams meeting for the championship. Mm-hmm. It is two great teams. Yeah, with
best on best.
Both having the opportunity to win, and it's a very exciting game. Very exciting game to look forward to.
And Brandon, I don't know if you have the stats on a graphic or have them in front of you.
I do.
When Valdosta State is in the national championship game, you can expect a pretty good outcome or a pretty good game. This is going to be their 6th appearance. All but one of those games was just a phenomenal football game. Ferg, hold your ears. There was one in there that wasn't so good. I'm going to throw shade at Super Region 1. So,
hey, they have
to play their part in
the title game. They got there.
They were there, yeah. And that was the only game in that group that wasn't a very memorable national championship game. And it's extraordinary because if they win this game, that would be their 5th national championship with 4 different head coaches. So that is,
I think so too. I think that's pretty impressive. That part of it, it kind of speaks to what they can do. And there's a lot of chatter in our comments, and we'll address this later about scholarships and resources. And Valdosta State has some advantages that others don't have, but they take advantage of them, and they hire good people to lead the program. So I think that I thought that before you'd made that the graphic, Chuck, before you'd come up with that, I thought that too, that it's pretty amazing how they've had success. And clearly like the 2004 championship was an upset over Pittsburgh State that year.
I think everybody thought Pitt State was going to win that game. That was a long time ago.
Right.
But my memory of that is that everyone thought Pitt State was going to win that game.
Pitt State scored the most points in college football history that year.
Who was the favorite in 07?
07, that's a toss-up. Northwest was pretty arrogant about like they were going to win, but that was out of ignorance.
That happens.
Grand Valley wasn't in the game that year, so I think everybody thought Northwest was kind of got over that. And but Valdosta was a really good team that year too.
Right. So I mean, and honestly, in 7, and I know Matt that you're not necessarily a fan of this kind of discussion, but in 07, neither of those teams were great versions of their school team, in my opinion. Like nobody would say that was the best Northwest team, or nobody would say that was the best Valdosta State team. But as we discussed, they just were good enough to both be the best that year, and that's all you have to do. He was 76-8 in 6 seasons at Northwest Missouri State, won 3 national championships, 2013, 2015, 2016, went 15-0 all 3 of those years. Adam Doral joins us now, the new head coach at Central Oklahoma. And Adam, it's great to have you with us today.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. The first question, at least the first one on my mind is why did you take the job at UCO? I know that you would have had opportunities at maybe higher levels, but why take the job in Edmond?
It's I've been asked that a lot, Brandon. I think the first thing that really stood out to me when I sat down and was assessing what was I going to do next in my career, like the number one factor that Aaron and I kept coming up with is like that we wanted to go to a place that had really strong leadership, starting at the athletics director position, because it's just, there's only so much a head football coach can do, and throughout the campus, and the vision and the mission really has to be really started and yearly fed, in my opinion, by the athletic director, the vision that he has to be able to relay it up the chain. And so that was going to be paramount for me. Number one is just really quality leadership. And then number two was really wanted to go to a place that not only, talked about wanting to be great, said they wanted to be great, but also had a plan and could show me, where they were, a few years ago, where they're at now, and then where the vision is. And so it was really clear to us early in that process that Stan, the AD, just Patty, the president of the university, I just thank a lot of them in their leadership. And then, they showed me where they had been a few years ago, where they're at now financially, from salaries to budgets to facilities. And it just, it was left a really strong impression on me.
Right. Obviously everybody who follows Division II and has seen our video of the best stadiums in D2 knows that UCO has got some great facilities, including the football stadium. Every place has some obstacles. What are the obstacles that you're going to have to overcome, at least initially?
Yeah, I think a couple things. I think number one is state of Oklahoma has really, really good high school football. And I take it a step farther. One of the other intriguing things for me is they have great high school wrestling, some of the best in the United States. And, I've always had really good luck with some guys that were really good wrestlers that also turned out to be really, really good football players. I say that because a lot of people recruit the state of Oklahoma. Texas comes up there, obviously Missouri, Kansas. So it doesn't matter. FBS, FCS to D2 to D3, there's a lot of people that come in the state. So, I think initially we just got to get our name out. And obviously Central Oklahoma already has so much of that in place. That's why I'm excited. I mean, they have a great reputation for academics. They have a beautiful campus. Edmonton, is right outside Oklahoma City. It's a destination place where young people want to go. And so we've just got to get out and share our vision of what we're going to do as an offense, as a defense, as special teams. It's just an entire football program. And I think once we get that rolling, I really think that'll help us to attract real quality recruits.
How far are you along in assembling the staff that you'll have at UCO?
Yeah, just finished Saturday, yesterday, of the offensive staff. So I'm totally done with the offensive staff. And then now I'm turning my attentions to the defensive staff. I'm going to retain a defensive line coach who I think's very sharp, good recruiter, good coach, good technician. And then we're going to hire a DC and then have another full-time spot on defense and 2 to 3 graduate assistants over there as well. And so that's this week's job. Obviously, I've already started on it, but I really get into it this week with some guys and excited. I'm talking to a handful of guys that I think are really quality defensive coordinators and got a lot of energy. So we'll wait and see.
How many full-time positions will you have on staff?
6 total, 7 counting myself.
Okay. That's that's very standard. 6 to 7. If you're less than that, you're not amongst the teams really able to compete. I know you just got there. I know you talked to the team. What do you know about the roster that you have?
Well, that's the other thing, Brandon, that excited me. I watched film as soon as I was there, was starting to get serious about the job. The first thing I did is watched film. I watched them versus Northwest Missouri State. I watched them versus Central Missouri. I watched them versus Pittsburgh State. And, to me, it was very apparent that there's talent on the roster. It's just the coverage not bare by any means. So that was super, super exciting about me. I think the strength is probably the defensive line. I think they have some good skill guys. And, obviously we need some work at place and got to tweak things. But, that was the big thing. The other thing I told the players is just like, I'm not coming in here trying to get rid of people. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm coming in here and trying to pick up and keep building, from the foundation up. And I just really challenged the players to just hang in there and give me a semester. I told them that I've experienced what they're going through, my freshman year in college. And I said, I know it's very unnerving, but I think that was the big thing. The message to them was, here's what I'm going to be about. We're going to be very hard nosed. We're going to be fundamentally sound. Me, I like having fun. I told the players, I don't want guys coming over there like, man, I got to go over to practice. It's like, I want them running over to the complex and being excited to be there. And I just, want to foster an environment of competition. I told them that, that was the big thing, is just really recruiting the roster right now. And I just said, hang with this first semester. If you don't like it, then you can leave. But, I think you'll like it.
Right. Speaking of recruiting the roster, the transfer portal has really changed the game in college football. I know you told the guys not to, don't leave. I know at Northwest Missouri State, you were, very high school heavy. Can a coach still build a program that way? And will that be the way that you want to build it?
Yeah. It's a good question, because one of the things I think I do well is I learned from my mistakes. And at my previous stop, I made a couple of really critical errors early. Number one was staffing. At the FCS level, there's a lot of turnover because some of the lower assistants don't get paid very much. The thing that I was proud of there is the guys that left my program either went FBS and, tripled or quadrupled their salary, or were getting coordinator spots at Division II schools. And so, I'm very proud of those guys and happy for them. The flip side of it is, I'm a guy who likes to allow autonomy and creativity amongst coaches in their room, but what I've done now and what I'm going to put in place is simply this, because there's two things you're going to have turnover on. You're going to have staff turnover anymore, and you're going to have turnover on the roster. And so here, what we're going to do on offense is this, and there's a set of terminology for it at every position. And this is what we're doing on special teams. We call it SWAT. And here's what we're going to do on defense. And we literally lay out the terms for every position. That'll be one of the first things that we do. It's already done on offense. Right. And then if a coach comes in or leaves, I'm not rehiring a new DC that's going to run a brand new system. It's going to, and so I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of that in college football. And the flip side of that, I say to you, Brandon, is by doing that, and I'm continuing to do it, it's just, less is more. We're going to be very simplistic. It's not going to look simplistic on offense, but the way we make it, the wording, it's really player friendly. It's plug and play. And we're going to do the same thing on defense, because here's the deal. If you don't, and you have a talented kid and you're not getting him on the field, he's going to transfer on you. Right. And I've heard the other argument, and I've seen this. Unfortunately, I experienced it at my last school. I had some really good freshmen, and it was like, as soon as they knew they could go FBS, and so I said to the staff, hey, what's the lesser of two evils? Let's at least get the dude on the field and let him help us win some games before he leaves, and that's not what I want, but I really think college football is trending that way. And so I think you got to make your systems really player friendly and get young guys involved early. So long way to answer your question. Yes, I still think you can develop a program. I'm just not so sure, at least like for us right now, to come in and say, hey, I'm going to redshirt guys. That seems to be a little bit of a taboo anymore with recruits. And so we'll just kind of have to wait and see. But we're going to go high school. I'm a high school guy, and I've found really good success with the transfer portal if you do your work. And if you have a relationship with the coach at that previous school that's actually giving you credible information. So those are the two ways we're going to start it.
We got two teams fighting for a national championship this week. Ferris State playing Valdosta State. They both played in 2018. Our staff thought it'd be a good idea to talk about what it takes to coach, what the championship week is all about. You would know that since you were a head coach for three of them, assistant coach for a few others as well. So, the first question, really the first thing that they wanted to talk about was there's always a mantra of taking it one game at a time or going 1-0 every week. But, kids are not stupid. They know that this is a big game. How do you keep everything in check so that they approach it like it is just another game?
Yeah, I think first, because obviously, we've seen it. I've seen it from a lot of different angles. And, like I stated earlier, I think, looking back on some of the mistakes that I made into championship weeks or we potentially made and tried to learn from those. So I think number one, I think you have to, as early in the week as you can, keep the routine as much as possible. And, that can be very difficult depending where your school's at for finals weeks and things of that nature. So early in the week, as much as you can, keep the structure the same, how you practice, how you lift, when you're getting up in the morning, all that good stuff. That's number one, I think, first and foremost. And then number two, when you're going on the road, when you're going to take the flight, when you get there, I think you have to be very structured in your approach. I think you really have to challenge your players to put their phones away, get off social media. And it's very hard. We obviously all know the impact that social media has on all of us and and it's almost like a drug. And so I think you got to challenge them, like, dude, turn your phone off and you just got to trust us on this. And those are some things that we did. We would just set time aside to say, hey, we were going to do this, and it was football related. But the other thing that I think we did really well, Brandon, that I learned that really helped the players, when we got there, we also set time aside where we wanted them to see their families. We wanted their families to come to the hotel, their girlfriends. That's also an important part of it. So I think you got to find the balance in that, because I think if you go one way or the other, I think you lose them. And so it can be challenging. And but I think those are the things we did really well, and then just really enforced each day, like do your job. You've heard me talk about 1/11. That's a big thing, and I think sometimes guys get caught up in, it's a championship game. I got a ball out or I got a star out. And, fortunately for myself and our other coaches, with the kids we had, just were really, really good those 3 years at doing their job and not trying to do too much, not forcing footballs. I think about our quarterbacks in those games. They all played really, really well, and they didn't make a lot of mistakes either.
Right. I think you might have already addressed it, but I want to hash it out again. How does the shortened week affect you? Because you play a game, you win on Saturday, and then you're traveling Wednesday, Thursday?
Yeah.
Is that when you're traveling? And I know maybe you addressed a little bit, but how do you shove all the film study, all of that sort of coordination into such a short period of time?
Yeah, I think the number one thing we learned is it's like, hey, it's week 15 or 14, whatever. And, right now, to trying to be doing new things into the championship week, I think that's where people fail. Like you gotta take the game plan. Obviously, you're basing it off what you're seeing from the opponent, but it's got to be stuff you've done throughout the year. To me, you try not to do new stuff, new things. And then again, you really got to challenge your players, because the meeting time is down, to really do things on their own. And so I know we would be meeting as coaches, the leadership counselor, the captains, by position. The quarterbacks were meeting on their own, the D line, the O line, and you really got to rely on your leaders. Your leaders have to help you in championship week. They're literally, those old guys, they're literally like coaches. And I mean, whether it was walkthroughs, our guys would do walkthroughs on their own. I mean, it was really cool to see. And so at this week, you hope you got a veteran team, or at least got some really good leaders over there that can help you.
Right. An interesting thing, I've been to many D2 championship games, many D2 playoff games. Some of them, I'm not a morning person. Some of them, were ridiculously early, if you ask me. We're not facing that scenario this week. The kickoff is at 8 p.m. Central Time in the national championship. So that's a different approach for a game. How does a team handle that much basically downtime before a game, or how would you handle it? I don't know that you've ever really experienced that, except for maybe a couple semifinals games, but how would you manage that?
Yeah, I experienced here at my last school, because we were predominantly night games. Our conference was. And so we had a lot of 7:30 kickoffs, even late into November. It is challenging. I think it's going to sound silly, but I think you start with Friday, what you do Friday night. I think it has to be very, very relaxed and very fun Friday. I think you get your work done early Friday as quick as you can, get your meetings done, and then that's a great time to, family, friends, let them have some time there, let them hang out together, let them sleep in Saturday, for a good time, and then just get up and do a little bit of movement stuff, a little bit of walkthroughs, but just the challenging thing is going to not let them get too hyped early before kickoff, which, unfortunately it can be an issue for some guys. Right. So I think you got to make it real relaxed, after about 2:00 on Friday, and then just slowly let it build into Saturday. But it can be challenging.
So final question we got for you, and maybe it doesn't affect you as a coach as much, or maybe it does. One of the first things we talked about is treating it like any other week, but we all are human and know that it's a big deal. How do you manage your nerves on game day?
Yeah, I for me, I try to keep that calm as contagious approach. Obviously, I've we all make mistakes in that area at time, but right. To me, I go back to the structure on game day. To me, if you're doing things right year round with, leadership training, leadership building, gotcha. And just, you love kids and kids love you. There's just a piece that comes with that. Like, and this is going to sound silly, but it was like, I never went into one of those games thinking about losing. I went into those games thinking about competing. I always told myself to put it on the kids. Me, the worst thing I could do is put the kids in a bad position by doing stupid things, making bad calls, running fake punts, stuff like that. I don't think you need to do that in a championship game. And so that was first and foremost. I always told myself, don't be you, don't do stupid things, let the kids decide it, and just, there's really this piece at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what the scoreboard is. It's, if you get a group of guys that have had great preparation all week, if they go out and play hard and they do their job and they play 111 football, it just, regardless, you'd be disappointed if you didn't win, but there's also a piece of like, man, you just made a journey with a group of guys. And, here's the thing that people don't understand. I don't care what level you're at. I don't care what sport you play. Winning a championship's hard. It's hard. And so, the fact that there's only going to be one person walking out of the arena feeling good, because I've been on the other side of that too. It can be a little nerve wracking, but just trying to relax and put it on the players and just keeping that demeanor like you've had all year.
All right. Well, Adam, best of luck at Central Oklahoma, and I'll be seeing you around. Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it. Roll Chose.
All right. That was Adam Doral, the head coach at Central Oklahoma. We'll be back with more of Inside D2 Football.
And we wanted to take a minute to thank everyone that has directly supported the site. These folks have made this video possible, as well as to help us survive and thrive. D2Football.com might be free, but it isn't cheap. If you like this video and like to see us produce more, or simply want to help support our efforts to promote our great game, please consider joining them. You can visit D2Football.com/support. There are options for monthly support as well as one-time considerations. There is a link in the description. Any way you can help is appreciated. Thank you in advance.
But the reason, so there were really two reasons for wanting to have that discussion, right? I mean, first is, it's a major news story that he's taken over the program at Central Oklahoma. It's a 3-time national champion head coach coming back to the MIAA. So that's a huge news story. And we talked about this a little bit last week or the week before about Central Oklahoma possibly being a sleeping giant in the MIAA. So we're all really excited to see what Coach Doral can do with that program. But the other thing that we really wanted to get some insight on is, what is it like for a coach during national championship week? Because this is so different. I mean, coaches want to approach everything the same way. Routines are so important for coaches. But this isn't just another game, and the logistics are very different. They travel in the middle of the week. That's not something that they normally do. They have media responsibilities that they don't normally have. There's the headshots with ESPN. There's the interview sessions with ESPN. There's knuckleheads like us that want to get their time and talk to them the day before the game or the day of the game. So it is a very different look and feel. When you play in the SEC or the ACC, you get to this level and it's a little bit bigger than it normally is. But there's still a lot of things that they're used to. Whereas with this, it's really one of the first times all year that they're going to have national media, opposing team media that wants to talk to them and get their time. And it's just very, very different. I know in years past, they'd have parades and, just a lot of extra things that you don't normally have. It has a bit more of a bowl game feel to it. So
pageantry, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, and some of these coaches, until you've gone through it a time or two, just don't have a lot of to gauge against or a barometer to really say, this is what I need to prepare for. These are things I need to watch out for, all the logistics that go into it. It's funny when you talk to coaches about the simple stuff. When I was down on Valdosta a couple of weeks ago, I got to talk with Coach Wilson and Coach Sewell before the game. And they actually traveled on Thursday before that game. And Coach Sewell said, yeah, we actually were really happy to be able to get away. We know where our guys have been for the last 48 hours. So we feel really good about that. They sometimes really like having that control, but those routines are so important. So it was really cool for Coach Doral to be able to share some of his insight with us.
Yes, it was.
Now, guys,
eliminate distractions like us.
Another thing to add while Brandon kind of posts that link in the comments.
Yep. I'm going to have to upload it again, Matt. There's some issues with this, so I'll have to upload it again.
Okay.
But I'll post it to Twitter and to our accounts here. You'll see it if you want to see it.
Right. And guys, kind of mentioning where that's going to end up landing. For those who don't know, we do have a YouTube page. And on that YouTube page, I'm going to strongly advise, guys, that if you're not already subscribing to us on our YouTube page, and we got like 20,000 Twitter followers, but we don't even have 1,000 people subscribing on YouTube. So we can get some additional flexibility with our channel, guys, on YouTube if we can get more and more subscribers. So if you're not already subscribing to that, subscribe, or I will look you up on Twitter, show up at your door, and kick you in the shins for not subscribing. I promise you. That's what happens on the week after the season. I go and visit everyone who's not subscribing yet. On a real note, Brandon, I'll let you take it away.
Speaking of getting kicked in the shins, I was thinking about this. Is K. Ferg bad luck for the RMAC? Because he shows up. I think he shows up to Western Colorado. They don't fare too well. Sees Mines in person last week. They survived. This week they lose. I'm not saying that it's K. Ferg's fault, but I'm also not saying it's not K. Ferg's fault.
Like
K. Ferg, defend yourself. Let us know.
It's like being the Reaper, right?
All right, guys. So let's look at how we picked last week's games. So we had already joked about it a little bit. Let me pull that up. All right. So unbeknownst to me, I picked the same score for both games.
Consistency.
But so Devin, you said you were the best on Ferris. Is that correct?
Valdosta game.
What's that? Or
Valdosta game. The second game. Yeah.
Okay.
41-30 was the closest one. 11-point spread.
Okay. So I mean, we never really agreed on how to measure these things, but I mean, do you measure it based upon the spread, or do you measure it based upon who got closest to the actual score, or how do you do this?
Whatever makes me right.
Okay, fair enough.
I like where you're going with it, Brandon. I think I win in that case.
Is that because at one point I picked 37-17 and it was 34-17, and I was obviously rooting for nothing else to happen except for one field goal in the game, but that obviously didn't come to fruition. But I've always wondered about this. When I was looking at this, I was thinking, how do we evaluate it? Because you could pick 11-0 and get the best spread, but your picks are nowhere near what the game was.
That's right. That's why I was closer. I agree, Brandon. Good take.
Okay, fair.
I don't know, man. That's pretty close there. 41-30 was 34-30. That's pretty close. One touchdown away.
You know what's funny, Devin? If you took your 30 and my 34 there, we're
darn close.
Yeah. But anyway,
we'll just combine for the win here. How about that? We'll both get a win here.
Fair enough.
All right, so I'm going to pull this down, guys, and then I have a question. We seriously haven't talked about this. We're going to be in McKinney, and if the NCAA lets us, we are going to stream live before the game. Going to do some fun stuff we've never done before, and it may not work. It may be a disaster like the AD video tonight, but we're going to give it a try if they'll let us. Should we save our picks for this championship game for that, or should we do it tonight?
Are you baiting me to try to drive to Texas next week? Because I will.
No, we can.
You don't get a vote.
What's that?
You don't come, you don't get a vote.
Oh, it's an automatic L, Chris, right?
Justin's like, I can't get it wrong.
You're right. I get a win. Hey, it all works.
I will be Justin's surrogate.
What do you guys think? Should we wait or should we do it now?
Or do we have the folks who cannot attend? Do they have to offer tonight? And then we can ridicule, of course, like we normally would. And then we who will be there, we need to offer up ours, the night that precedes the game or something. Because, I mean, look at all our fans. I mean, my goodness, can you imagine how much they're going to be in anticipation for our picks?
That's exactly what I think. I mean,
well, wait. Now, if we're not there, we could still get on, though, right? If we're using this system.
That's true, too. That is true, too.
We're going to pretend like we don't know you after this.
and those of us who are there are just going to obfuscate everything by putting all kinds of bogus information out through the video about, somebody's really limping in warm-up.
Yes. From the sideline, Jared Bernhardt didn't make the trip out of protest. My nephew and I went to watch a game called National Champions the other night, and it was about obviously fictitious story of a college football player boycotting the championship game. It was fictitious for a number of reasons. I don't think anybody would really boycott the championship game. The second reason was fictitious because it showed a Division I team from Missouri in a college championship game. And we all know that will not happen. But nonetheless, one of his demands was he wanted all this stuff for all Division I athletes. And I'm sitting there thinking, they're talking about injuries and all this, and I'm thinking, there's some D2 and D3 folks that have the same issues. Why are we not thinking about them? But nonetheless, that was just.
Hey, Brandon, real quick, 1 second. I got Eric Thompson in the comments saying he'll pick me up in the Grand Valley private jet so I can get down to Texas next week. So
no, don't trust him. It's not a private jet. It's an old mail. It's an old mail plane, and it just picks up the hook as it flies by.
You know what? It's cheaper than driving, man. I'll take it.
But Eric is one of the guys who does own a private jet. Ironically, serves peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on the jet. But
I'm in.
All right. So what do you guys want to do? What do you guys want to do? You want to wait till the show to do it, or should we do it now? What?
Make them pick.
Make them pick tonight?
Yeah, them.
All right. Oh, them. Oh.
Wow.
Make the others pick.
All right. All right. We got Ferris and Valdosta. Justin, since you have just tore it up this year, you go first.
Wow.
Wow.
Are we picking a score, or are we just picking straight up?
We're picking team and school, and both teams are anxiously awaiting your words, by the way.
That is
We just said team and school. That's the same thing, Whit.
Wait a minute, though, because remember, Justin's got a dog in the hunt here since his conference is involved.
Yeah, everyone else is out.
Hey, just for consideration, I don't put a whole lot of stock in long-range weather forecasts, but the weather forecast for the weekend in McKinney does not look very favorable.
No, it is not.
It's going to be cold and potentially rainy. Well, cool.
I was going to give you a hard time about geography because it was like 50 and you're saying it's cold.
What's it saying?
See, there's a cold front coming across here.
Yeah. So let's talk about the map for a minute, Ferguson, since you really haven't had any real-time use for it. can you show us where Chuck is coming from on the map? Good. Okay, now just to show how far apart we are, where's Wick coming from?
He had to stand up.
Yep. Boy, good. Okay, and then where is Brandon coming from? Okay, and I think that's everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm down
Where's Justin
Ferg,
watching the
where
game?
Right now? Where are you at right now?
I'm down here in the boot.
Yep.
Baton Rouge.
In the swamps. I'm here in the swamps. I'm running out
How far a drive is it for you? For
6.5 hours.
okay.
Oh.
For me, it's about 12 and a half. Chuck's getting on a flight, and Brandon and I will be driving the second leg of my tour from Kansas City down to Texas together, or as long as we can stand each other's company.
So he'll be kicking me out about Joplin.
Yeah,
Joplin.
he'll be in the third seat of my SUV by the time we get to about Pitt State.
All right, so let's make a pick. Justin or Devin, you either commit to being there or pick today.
I can't commit yet, but if I do go, I'll just make my pick again there on Saturday. Kind of going back and forth this game. I think Valdosta is going to be able to score some points here. I think they'll put some points up against Ferris. I think Ivory Durham's give them a look they haven't really seen. I even thought a couple games here versus Ferris that a mobile quarterback could exploit them a little bit on defense because he can move. First read's not open, he can take off, get a few yards as well, and keep the chains moving. I think Ferris is just too good offensively right now. They're moving the line of scrimmage every team they play. So I'm going to take Ferris 42-31 is my guess here. I think it's a really good game. I think they score late to kind of extend it to 2 scores. I think it's a 1-score game kind of the whole time, and then Ferris scores late and kind of puts them away with a late touchdown by Bernhardt.
Okay. Jay, what do you think?
All right. So a couple things real quick before I make this pick. Just we talked about it. I don't know if it was said. Both teams are traveling down on Wednesday this week. So both teams will be in McKinney, Texas on Wednesday. I think this is both offenses are going to go off. Devin, why are you sitting there hoping I pick against what you just said? So
Take the Blazers.
No, but I think both offenses are, obviously Ferris State does a lot of things. They shift, they motion, they do a lot of, they give you a lot of eye candy offensively to match their athleticism, their front, and they do a lot of really good things. That being said, I think Valdosta State presents a problem for them, just with, Ivory Durham, his ability to throw the football and be able to run as well. And I think that provides he didn't get sacked this weekend. He provides another element to the game that a lot of people don't get to see week in and week out. So that being said, I think it's going to be a high scoring affair. I'm going to go with Valdosta again in a 3-point win, 52-49.
Ooh, I like the offense though. I will love watching that football game personally.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be a lot of it. Watch us all be completely wrong and it'd be like a 21-17 game.
It'd be 10-7 Buffalo, New England.
If it's a bad game, okay, and there is rain, if there is miserable weather, et cetera, who does that benefit?
Ferris. They live in that stuff. They live and breathe bad weather. They love it.
I would say it probably does, but I don't. I mean, they deal with it now. I will tell you this: Valdosta has played in the rain this year, and it hasn't thrown them off. So,
all right,
they played in it. They won. I think I will say this. I think that, and that's a great question. Both of these teams, and you just said it, they live in it, right? At Ferris State. But back when the spread started coming about and everybody started throwing the football a lot, the rain really played a big deal in it. Now you go out and you practice in the rain every day. The rain's not a big deal. So yeah, it may impact the game, but that where we used to think, oh gosh, it's raining, they're not gonna be able to throw the football. Nah, it's out the window. The rain doesn't impact it as much because we've been doing it for so long now at such a high rate that I don't think the rain will play as big of an impact as we think it will. It may, but I don't see it. I don't see it having that kind of impact.
All right. Anybody else want to comment about the championship game, or do we want to save it for Saturday?
Maybe get some key points at least. So I give us your picks away.
Yeah, I'm not going to make a pick tonight just because I want a couple more days to think about it. I think that this is, first of all, it's a great matchup. I'm really excited about it. I think we're going to have an awesome game. I think it'll probably be a lot like that 2018 game. I do think it probably will be high scoring. The thing that I find to be the biggest variable is if Valdosta State can put Ferris into passing situations, can Ferris throw their way out of trouble? I don't know that they can. If they get their running game working, specifically the quarterback running game, they are really, really hard to stop. But if Valdosta can put them into some passing situations, I don't know that they really can throw their way out of trouble. They're not a disciplined or precise passing attack. They're opportunistic. So when they really get Bernhardt running for 5 touchdowns and a half, and all of a sudden, that's what you're most concerned about, they're going to sneak somebody open and hit them. But they're not really an attacking pass offense. So if they can be put into situations where they have to do that to survive, it's going to be really interesting to see if they can do it. I'm not sure that they can. So it could be the type of game where, 2 or 3 stops might do it. And if Valdosta has the talent to come up with a few, you get, maybe a couple penalties here or there. Those things are usually in close games. What do we talk about? Special teams, turnovers, and penalties can be huge factors. And I think that those will be in this game as well. So all that said, I do think Ferris is the better and stronger football team. I'm leaning in that direction, but I really want to take a close look at what is Valdosta's capacity to stand up to their quarterback running game, because that's the do or die for Ferris.
I think an interesting thing that we really haven't talked about is the fact that Ferris is going to be kind of saddled with the burden of being the favorite. They're undefeated, whereas Valdosta's got a loss. Valdosta's coming off a real tight game, or at least by score, and probably gives the thought to many that, hey, Ferris just blew out Shepherd. Ferris is probably, pretty healthy favorite in this game. A lot of people are going to be taking Ferris just based on the results of the semi, not to mention one team's unbeaten. So I think Ferris all of a sudden, in trying to still win their first title, is going to be the favorite. So that's a little extra pressure that I don't really think Valdosta's got that kind of pressure on them. So you got to wonder if some of that is going to weigh into this. And does one team come out a little bit more tense than the other? The other team's just coming in there and attacking success. It'll be interesting to see that first quarter, that feeling out process, because I think it's still hard to ignore that. I think all of us feel that Ferris is probably better at the line of scrimmage. And, that's probably going to offer a little bit of a challenge to a Valdosta team that's still pretty good at the line of scrimmage, but Ferris is just throwing people around like a bouncer
bullies
out of the club, and so those are just some things that I'm thinking about. I'm not ready to pick a winner just yet. But I think I love the fact that this is kind of best on best, including Ferris having Jared Bernhardt, the quarterback, back.
Mm-hmm.
It's both teams at full strength or as much as we can. And I really think that makes for a tremendous championship game.
Yeah, and even if Bernhardt goes down, they have a reliable backup, Malik Mitchell, who they trust as well. So they have they have some depth at the most important position as well. So one thing to note with Ferris as well, if Bernhardt does get banged up, they're not dead in the water.
Ferg, what things are going through your mind about this matchup, sir?
Well, there are a couple of things that kind of stand out for me, especially with Valdosta. The first one is turnovers. It seems like there seems to be a lot more turnovers that Valdosta's kind of giving up, and that's not good. The trend is going in the wrong direction there for me. And then, the offensive output is certainly going down quite a bit. They had that explosion against West Georgia, which is a team that they had played before already in the regular season. But outside of that, we're used to Valdosta really blowing the doors off of things. And now I'm saying 34 points is like not that much, which is a pretty healthy score for most any other team. But when you're looking at a race car that Ferris is, you need every bit of points that you can get. And I think that, certainly we underestimated Mines, but, it seems like maybe Valdosta may have done so as well. And so, I'm a little apprehensive to pick, because I think my head is looking one way and my heart's looking a different way. So I'm kind of like Chuck. I want to think about it a little bit more, but I think clearly Ferris is the favorite, and I think Valdosta has the burden of, we've already beat this team one time, right? So there may be an expectation that they can beat them again, but it's a different style of offense to me, with Ivory Durham as a quarterback that has a more propensity to run than Rogan Wells did, who could run, but that wasn't something that he did as much. So that's kind of my initial thoughts. I think everything you guys have said about Ferris is pretty much the same as I think. I think that they have playmakers all over the place on offense. Certainly passing is not their thing. That's a strength for Valdosta over Ferris. But the defense, I think the defenses are pretty much about equal, in my opinion. And so I think it's going to come down to how hot the offenses are and who can keep up with who.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to mention one thing. I know someone said in the comments, if Bajan couldn't score on Ferris, what do you think that Ivory Durham can? I think they're two different quarterbacks. I think Bajan's more of a pocket passer and relies on his O-line to give him time. He didn't have time versus Ferris. I think Durham, if he doesn't have time, I think he has a little better off the line. But if he doesn't have time, he can create off script as well, and that's what Ferris could maybe struggle with. That's what I was saying, what they could score more points against what Shepard did. He's got a better supporting cast, and he's just a different type of quarterback there with using his legs a little more than what Bajan. Bajan's a better passer. No one's arguing that. It's just stylistically it matches up better with Ferris than what Bajan could do versus him.
Ferris very
move around so well that it's just it's another individual that you really have to worry about defending when plays break down. He's not going to take a sack if he doesn't have to.
Yeah, Ferris knows all about the numbers game when you're using their quarterback running game as well. Just put the defense in a really difficult situation. So,
yeah, Ferris very well could shut down Durham, but it doesn't mean that comparison is a valid comparison.
Yeah,
it's two different things. So, all right, do we want to go ahead and start taking user questions, men?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. This is something that I told Joe we'd address. There's been some chatter about scholarships on our message board, which anybody can sign up for. Any thoughts about scholarship discrepancies when additional non-athletic scholarships are used to add to football scholarships? Now, I mentioned earlier that Valdosta State has some advantages, and this is one of them. But let me address this in a bigger way. Every place has advantages and disadvantages. Sure, Ferris might have a bunch of scholarships, effectively a bunch more scholarships than everybody else, and Valdosta State might have effectively more scholarships than everybody else. There's always going to be differences between the top funded and the worst funded, and the most scholarships effective, because we all know 36 is the ceiling when it comes to athletic scholarships for football. So there are schools that have a bigger budget. There are schools that have to eat peanut butter and jelly because they don't have the operating budget. So everybody has strengths and weaknesses. Probably most schools are in close to the average. In the if you were to run the numbers, and you can find these numbers, but I just think that it's probably not worth focusing on in terms of the scholarships, Joe, because it's not something that we can control. In addition to the fact that I would not want any of the students who get an extra scholarship for whatever means to not get that scholarship simply so that things are quote unquote fair in sports. And I know that, Joe, that you weren't advocating for that, but I never want students to get less so that they have to pay more, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And if we're talking about a student athlete, getting some scholarship money for things other than athletics, if they're getting some academic scholarships outside of sports. You know, that's any student should be able to qualify for that.
Right.
Yeah, and scholarships comes up all the time because there is such a huge disparity across Division II. The limit is the same for everybody, but
Well,
you know, a lot of programs are not funding, you know, athletic scholarships up to the limit.
Right.
Valdosta State, I'm 99% sure they're not funded at the full 36.
But they have the advantage of the Hope Scholarship, which is an incredible advantage, which Eric talked about the tip scholarships. I'm not familiar with it, but I do know that they're able to get a lot of financial assistance for players. And ultimately, guys, you know, the show's about football and we all love football, but at the end of the day, the goal is to graduate. And if the kids can graduate without, you know, mountains of debt, you know, piling on top of them, I like it. But
Can I hijack that one thing real quick? I'm sorry, Ferg. Just
go
real
ahead,
quick.
please.
This was really awesome, actually. So after the Valdosta game, after the game's done, there was a van out front, outside their locker room. They rushed the players after the celebration. You know, after the field, they clear, they go to the locker room, get their stuff. They took them back to the football facility. They escorted them from the facility to get changed, get their cap and gown, and get over to graduation because it was the fall commencement was Saturday after the game. So it was really awesome to see about 6 or 8 guys rush out of the locker room, go get changed, and go head to graduation. Like, you know, that's really kind of what it's all about. So that was really, really cool because not only do they get to go to the national championship, but they got a degree. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think the issue to me is scholarships. I think the issue is supporting those student athletes, whether you're looking at the funds available for assistant coaches and how do you lure those guys to go to a Division II school. I mean, if you look at Valdosta and Ferris State, so Valdosta has an enrollment just under 10,000 students, and Ferris has an enrollment of about 14,000. You know, some of these other, you know, schools that we look at in Division II that are, you know, really strong programs also have larger enrollments, and so they have more resources to pull from, in my opinion, whether there's a larger alumni base or more student fees or something like that. So I think that's more, I agree. That's to me the disparity that I think you kind of see because across Division II. I mean, you know, even, you know, the CIAA, which is certainly on the lower end in terms of performance on the football field. I mean, they're still funding somewhere around 20 to 25 scholarships.
Right.
So they're not really that far off of what some of these programs that are in the playoffs are doing. It's the support behind that. That's the
That's
issue.
an excellent point, Ferg. I think salary pool for coaches, the head coach and the coaching staff is something that, you know, kind of doesn't get a lot of attention or talked about a lot in terms of, you know, how that affects the program. But you know, I know Elizabeth City State in North Carolina fired their coach at the end of the season. I was pretty floored to learn that he was the only full-time coach employed.
Holy buckets.
Yeah. And half of his salary was football coach and the other half of his salary was as a faculty member.
Wow.
So, you know, that's you can't expect somebody to work miracles with that. If you're the only full-time football coach trying to coach a Division II football team and you're going up against teams that have, you know, the full allotment of staff and a salary pool that pays them, that's really not a fair fight for that coach.
Right. And I also believe, because this is something that has come up literally hundreds of times running the website since we started it in 2000. I don't believe it's necessarily causation, but there's certainly a correlation between funding and success. Yeah. I think some can do more with less and some do less with more. And no, they should not move up. But they probably are going to, but you know, I love them, but
that's for Matt in the comments. I'm not going to Texas now because I'm hiding.
I mean, it really is a good topic, and I don't think we need to dive into it all because we have a national championship game coming up. But using the PSAC as an example, because I don't think any of the teams in the PSAC are at 36.
Right.
California's close. IUP's close. I think Shepherd's actually pretty close right now. Most of the others are nowhere near the 36 limit. But because they're state schools with state jobs and state benefits, the coaching salary pools are competitive.
Right. Let me piggyback off that, Matt. And I think it goes to what everybody's saying because it's more nuanced than one reason.
Right.
So take a small operating budget or even an operating budget that's 80% of what everybody else has. Then you take a scholarship pool or budget that's 80% of what everybody else has. Then you take a coaching salaries pool that's 80% of what everybody else has. So on and so forth. And all of those little things add up to make a job impossible. When I re-upload the Doral video to the D2 channel rather than my own personal channel, when I do that, in there I ask him about how many full-time coaches he has. He has 7. Because I know that that's a big deal that, programs in general, if you're going to compete nationally, at least, which is where my focus is, as you guys know, you're going to need at least 6 full-timers and some GAs, and he'll have 7. So it's all of those things that combine to make a difference. And Justin and Chuck can speak to this too, because there are a lot of private schools in the South Atlantic Conference where, Chuck covers, Justin lives. So those are often more expensive as well. And that's a factor in the whole thing as well. If you give out 36 scholarships, but kids are still having to, let's say theoretically, take out as many loans as they would as a walk-on at another school, you're at a disadvantage. So there's no one thing that makes somebody good or bad, but it's a nuanced,
the model
combination of everything. Yeah.
The model between state schools and private schools can be very different too, depending on the state regulations. A lot of private schools can actually just discount the cost of tuition.
Right.
Whereas a lot of the state schools, the money has to be raised privately. It's not a free ride. Somebody's paying for it. The schools and the programs actually have to raise the money to pay for it. So it's just a very different model.
Right. And Chuck, and you have experience with this. The PSAC cannot use state funds for scholarships. Other state schools and other conferences and states can.
Correct. So they can't use any of the state. They can't use any state funding towards the scholarships. That's why, most of them are pretty short. All the money has to come through private donations, private fundraising, and the prospect camps that they do.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to kind of mention there is that there's still the in-state and out-of-state tuition cost as well. And I think when you look at some of the rosters in the eastern part of the country, like those conferences, they're heavily reliant on small pools of talent in the states that they are, because they're trying to keep the scholarship. They're trying to stretch that dollar, and the better way to stretch that dollar is by getting in-state kids. So that's another consideration to me as well.
Which nobody ever thinks about that. When it comes to private, so nobody ever considers that a private doesn't care about in-state or out-of-state. It's the same no matter what.
Guys, I gotta go for this evening.
Yes,
really looking forward to seeing some of you guys down in McKinney, Texas. Hope
Absolutely,
to see some fans
Chuck.
there as well. Brandon, there is a question in the comments about punting, so I want to make sure that gets deferred to Whit.
I saw that.
He likes to talk about kickers and punters, so make sure he puts it in there and talks about that.
All right. Thank you, Chuck.
I'll be doing a special analysis for the championship of the kicking game with both teams. So everybody tune in for that.
Isaac
Jed Quackenbush is the guy you want to look up for the person who asked that question.
You guys and one team has a wideout who can do both kicking or the punting and the kicking. I'm going to have a little teaser there, but keep going.
That's right.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback real quick off this, the discrepancies as well between conferences. NIL is also a thing that's kind of to creep up a little bit more to see how much that. The MIAA tweeted out something earlier this past week that I retweeted that had the top 25 conferences, D1, everybody, and there were 4 D2 conferences in the top 25. You had the Northern Sun at 24. You had the Rocky Mountain at 22, the South Atlantic at 21, and the MIAA at 14th. So those are 4 conferences that are NIL deals that they've got for their players and stuff like that. These are for all sports, not just football. So all sports there as well. So that's one more thing that's kind of the extra funding there, and you have just the commitment of the teams in the conference to want to be at the top level with that, because you have teams like Northwest and Pitt State and Central Missouri who have the big fan bases there, also in Kansas City with a lot of business and stuff like that. They can help fund a little bit more and want to get back to their university. I don't, because I'm broke, but so there's a lot of people who can in the area kind of deal with that, and they do because they want to see their programs compete at the national level. I mean, you see it with all sports. For example, Northwest, who I'm most fluent in, for the first time ever, they had football, volleyball, women's soccer, and cross country all make national championship runs this year kind of deal.
Stop.
What?
We only talk about real sports on this show, and
I'm just
you
saying,
mentioned
an example.
You mentioned things other than football, so we automatically knew. That
I know it's just an example of them just finding the whole university and the sports department in general.
All right. So do we need to add anything to our discussion? Okay.
Yeah.
Whit, Eric subscribed. Do not kick him in the shin.
Okay, I'll have to cross him off the list because my printer is hot and heavy right now with all the people who have not subscribed yet. What are we at right now, Brandon? Why don't you refresh that? If we're still like, kind of short,
like 850 or something like that. I really expected we would be above 1,000 by the end of the season. So that's one of the only disappointing things this year, aside from the failed audio tonight. Is our subscriber count.
Well, and at least we didn't find any Shadron State video either. But anyway,
that's true. True. This was worse. So because this was a good interview, but people will get to see it. So I feel bad about this when we were still talking about the teams with the bad video. So all right, let's try to find it.
I was going to check our count real quick just to see.
Go ahead.
We're at 869. That's completely unacceptable. But okay.
Yeah. Okay. Just a comment. Does Mines opens up at Grand Valley next year? I think that'd be a great game. Congratulations again to the Lakers for having an interesting schedule.
Well, both teams bring back their quarterback, their lead running back, if I'm not mistaken. So that could make for. I mean, when you have Mines bringing back Matoka and the bowling ball guy, Zeman. They're bringing back both of those guys, and I mean that I tell you, that play should be really humming at that point. That'll be a great, first game.
So Mines or Grand Valley opens up with Mines, and then goes to CSU Pueblo. So theoretically, Grand Valley could win the RMAC next year, simply by their non-conference schedule. All right.
I subscribe to the channels.
Yeah, what's up, Justin?
I subscribe, so we're at 870 now.
There we go. Woo, we got Justin on board.
We're going to manipulate numbers.
Tell the wife that about the whole shins thing, because when I see her in Texas, the shins thing will be very uncomfortable for her if she has nothing.
Prepare the medical bills.
Hey, former college catcher, she's got shin guards on. She'll be just fine. All right. No, I'm not going to put that one up there. Bagent, we already talked about Bagent and Durham comparison.
There's Grand Valley State people, and they're talking about women's soccer because it's technically football. So for you, Brandon, only.
Thanks, guys. I already feel bad enough about bad audio, and now you're just piling on with this. So I think I'll just go to bed early tonight.
So apparently Grand Valley is a soccer school now. So
is that right? Okay. Lots of complaining about officiating. All right, I wanted to address this. So they were talking about officiating, and then they said, and yet the ESPN announcer told us how Ferris does not get penalties. I only bring this up to mention that at least they got your school name right. During the Valdosta State Colorado Mines game, all they kept saying was the Mines. And I don't know where they got it, but at least they were getting the school names right in that broadcast. Jan is a Valdosta fan, as you can see by her avatar. And she says they love being the underdogs in the national championship games. I think we've talked a few times about anytime Valdosta is an underdog, they succeed. Anytime they're expected to win, it doesn't go as good for them. So it's amazing how that works out.
Mhm.
All right.
Psychological warfare.
It is. Lots of complaining. Grand Valley Northwest going at it. Grand Valley Northwest or Grand Valley and Ferris going at it.
It's always Grand Valley State. It's always them. It's always the Lakers.
Yeah. All right.
They always started. Okay, I promise.
Yep. 866. Hey, I was told there would be no math. All right. That's an inside joke between he and I. All right. Oh, that is correct, Casey. I did hear that.
They call Florida State?
Yeah, they called Ferris State Florida State.
No.
So, which clearly, Devin, Ferris State would be higher on the FSU list than Florida State for you, right?
I don't know. They're still below Fairmont and Frostburg. So
well, still better than Florida State. All right,
maybe I don't know yet. We'll see.
All right.
If they win Saturday, sure.
You know,
And watching some of the FCS games this weekend, if you guys, were flipping around the dial or ESPN Plus dial for that matter, South Dakota State
showing your age.
They cannot play one game. Yes, thank you. They can't play one game on ESPN with the announcers not calling them San Diego State.
Really?
Anytime they have SDSU on, they always end up calling them South Dakota State or not, San Diego.
Yeah.
And it's nuts. And they went through almost the entire broadcast, and then they couldn't stick the landing. They called them San Diego State at the end. So
we need to refer to the K-Ferg map. How far apart is San Diego State and South Dakota State on the map?
That's a pretty good distance for.
Yes.
Yeah. So is Ferris in Florida. I mean,
but but K-Ferg is smart enough to know that he probably hasn't been to South Dakota State because he does not like the cold. But I would bet the traveling man has been to San Diego. Am I wrong? Yes. Okay.
Ferg, it's a good thing that your travels didn't end up somehow taking you up to the Northern Sun, because during this Saturday we had 10 inches of snow coming on down and winds. So Ferg, having you on the sidelines would have been priceless in a moment like that.
Yeah, if I could have got there.
Yeah, that too.
All right, guys. That looks like it's it for questions and comments. Again, I want to apologize for that interview. I feel real bad about that didn't work out. But if you're interested in it, and it was an interesting video, especially talking about the championship game this week, I think you'd be interested in that a little bit. Thanks to ESPN for the highlights tonight. I know we've harped on it, but please like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. This is growing, and I've said it a number of times, but this has been a joy for me to do this year. And it's been my favorite new thing that we've added in forever. And I'm really proud of it. It's a lot of fun. It's allowed me to become, better friends with all the guys that, are on the site, that all the writers and stuff. It's been a blessing. And what's that, Whit?
It's been okay.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, for sure. Make sure you subscribe, or else Whit will find you and he will kick you in the shin.
That's true.
Also, if you
Yes.
he's quick with his foot, yeah, despite his age. If you think that I should go to Texas this week, tweet at me at Devin Albertson. Tell me I should go to Texas, and I'll probably end up going. If I get enough peer pressure from Twitter, I'll probably go with that. So
he'll probably give you his Venmo.
Hey, I'll make that available as well.
It's all good. But again, we'll try to broadcast before the game. It will not be a professional level pregame show, just like this is not a professional level reaction show, but it will be, the best that we can do in covering the Deuce. And I really think it's going to be interesting for those that aren't there to be able to get a feel for what's going on. And I'm honestly really hoping that we pull it off, and I'm really looking forward to do it. So anything before we go, man?
Yeah. Hey, one thing though, Ferg, if this whole thing doesn't work out covering football, you may have a future in weather. You can point out the map. You got the whole hand gesture thing down. You may
My
have a future in it,
coworkers
buddy.
tell me that. So, I manage like 50 people, and I have to be the weatherman 6 months out of the year because of hurricanes down here. So I send lots of updates when there are hurricanes coming this way. So,
Ferg, bring the map with you. We'll put it on the wall in the media room in Texas. People will be asking, if you don't know about the map, then you don't know. So,
you haven't been watching the show if you don't know about the map. That's a good test, and then you can kneecap them on site.
Exactly. and then I'll watch subscribe to YouTube. Exactly.
Yes, thank you. All right, guys. Well, that will do it for tonight. Hopefully, we will see you next Saturday in McKinney, Texas. Thank you very much for watching.